I heard an amazing statement that said New York takes 2 years to get acclimated to, and 18 years to remove yourself from. And of course, it wasn't until we had already, you know, grown into the city that we realized that we couldn't be taken out that easy, that it wouldn't be just enough just to pop out to New York, get a taste, and then raise our family back in Milwaukee. Once we started preschool and started going to exhibitions and events at, you know, PS1 and the new museum, and you don't really want to go anywhere else. You jump on a train, you ride your bicycle, and you're at a, you know, an event somewhere, and you go to your hardware store, and there's people, you know, exhibiting sculptures amongst nuts and bolts and bungee cords, and you realize you've come to a place that you've longed for a long time. When you were asking about the neighborhood, there's an example of this building right there that's got sort of the brown and then the brick, and there's sort of a yellow seam vertically climbing up the corner. Yeah. And some of these buildings, they're cladding over their old brick, and it saddens me because you lose that patina, you lose that urban palimpsest that's coming up. And when you asked about if the cities affected me, you realize how much you give up when you try to, you know, put a veneer over something. And I wonder how graffiti and pollution and wear and tear will affect, you know, fancy skin coats versus stone and brick and mortar, cement, brownstone. But I like the juxtaposition a lot. You know, I mean, I feel like, you know, if you can preserve some of the old buildings, you know, that sort of like cement and peach and the architecture there bumped up against this crisp modern edge is exactly what I'm doing in my paintings. I forget there's an Asian term for something that's been handled and touched, and that, you know, older Japanese prints, the more oils and the fact that a human has interacted with it gives it more cachet. And, you know, I look at this roof and you see all the things that have happened up here. It's the cumulative result of everything that's come before it, not just, you know, this slick, beautiful, pristine landscape environment. So we moved to Williamsburg 11 years ago, and we lived in the space for about a year before we started to kind of domesticate it and tried to figure out where a studio workshop would go, where a kitchen would go, where a bedroom would go, where our first daughter would have her compound. And initially things were a little ambiguous, the borders and stuff like that. But the studio has always been sort of this space that we tried to contain the painting activity, because it would sort of have like a radius of splatters and you know, get tracked on your feet, and, you know, you would have it just, you know, migrating out through the rest of the house. There was nothing, you know, couches and stools and everything, just, you know, you'd sit down and there'd be paint, you'd touch something, there'd be paint. And so we've tried to encapsulate it a little bit. But you get to interact with a painting as you're making dinner. Yeah. You know, you're making your morning coffee, and you may not necessarily be in your studio, but you're seeing the decisions that you're going to make in 40 minutes once your studio day gets started. One of the things I like to talk about is just a palimpsest. I love that, you know, an urban palimpsest, like the successive layers of decay and you know, the crispness. And I was talking about it with the urban architecture, how, you know, a new building is put up next to an old building, next to brick, next to peeling paint, and all those things are coalescing into this, you know, visual sort of soup that you get to interact with. And when one becomes, you know, when it's too crusty, it's boring in this way, and when it's too slick, it becomes boring in another way. But when you somehow infuse them all together, you get something that to me is really, really engaging. And that's, you know, that's where the rhythm is.